Hello, loves. Today I have compiled quite a few good stories. Let's get started. Story: Am I overreacting that my boyfriend doesn't propose to me? Me, 31 years old, and my partner, 31 years old, are together for 7 years now, and we just bought our very first house last week. We have been together since we were 24 and we are not engaged, and I don't know if he ever want to propose because he's not really talking about it. Even when I ask him, we just arguing about it, so I never thought about marriage when I was younger, but then when we both turned like 26 to 27, I started to show interest about it, and at the same time everybody around us, all our friends got engaged, had wedding, expected their first child, etc. And I mentioned him that I want to get engaged before I turn 30. He never said anything. And I just kept repeating myself and he just kept saying nothing. I felt guilty and bad for mentioning and saying things like this to him because I didn't want to put pressure on him, but at the same time I wanted to know his thoughts and also let him know what I want. We were already saving up for deposit to buy a house, and once he said that after we have the house we want he can buy a nice ring and propose, but right now he doesn't have £5,000 to spend on a ring. I already knew what ring I want, and that doesn't cost that much, and also I would never want him to buy me such an expensive ring anyway. So I told him this, and I sent him the rings I like, and I told him he can choose which one he wants to propose with. I just wanted him to know I don't expect anything expensive, I just want to see that he is serious too, just like me. His answer was that if he wouldn't be serious he would not buy a house with me. This was like 2 years ago. Since that, every holiday we go on, every night out together, every birthday, every family events we go together, I think he'll do it, but nothing. People around us keep questioning him about it, and he just says, oh, our plan is to buy a house first and then I can afford a ring, but it's not our plan, just his. But it's awkward for me, and it makes me angry because I already told him I don't want expensive ring and I wanted to get engaged before 30. Every time we talk about this we just arguing. He gets offended because I say what I think and what I feel, and then he doesn't really speaks to me for days. I just realized that we don't want the same things from life and it makes me sad. I'm 31 already and I don't want to say yes anymore to him because I feel he just ruined everything. I don't know what to do anymore because I can't have a serious conversation with him about this, and even if I would have one I feel nothing would change. I don't want to propose to him, that's just not me, and he would not want that either. I think the communication between us is very, very bad, and I don't know how to fix it because I know if I mention this he'll not talk to me. I just don't want to wait anymore, and I don't want to say yes anymore. And I hate this feeling. Even when I ask him we just arguing about it. Story: Was I right to stay in my marriage after discovering my husband's past behavior? Hi everyone, I've been reflecting on my relationship 3.5 years and wanted to get some outside perspectives. My husband, 27 years old, and I am 26 years old, dated for 2 years before getting married. During our dating period, I noticed he had a lack of boundaries with his female friends, which was a constant issue for me. He had been cheated on in a previous relationship, which led him to make several changes in his life, including maintaining close friendships with women. After living together for a month and loving each other's company, we decided to get married. Our long-distance relationship had been draining, so the decision felt right at the time. However, a few months into our marriage, I discovered that during a rough patch in our relationship, he had spoken badly and untruthfully about me to some of his close female friends. This happened several months before our marriage. My husband struggles with wanting to look good in front of his friends and finds it hard to say no to them. Learning about this past behavior was devastating for me. I felt incredibly hurt, angry, and disrespected, and I immediately considered separating, despite us only being married for 4 months. When confronted, he begged for another chance, assuring me that he had been loyal and respectful of boundaries for the 3 months leading up to our decision to get married. He promised to show me that he had changed and asked for forgiveness for speaking behind my back. Despite my anger and hurt, I chose to stay because I love him deeply, and I could see he was different from the man he used to be. Since then, he has stuck to his boundaries and has not crossed any lines with his female friends. It's been a year since that low point in our marriage. We are still long distance, but our love remains strong, and each day has been a journey of loving and learning about each other. While I don't regret staying, I sometimes wonder if I was right to stay from an outside perspective. Was it fair to myself to stay in the marriage after feeling so disrespected? Am I being unloving to myself for forgiving and moving forward? I would appreciate any thoughts or advice from those who have been in similar situations or can offer an outside perspective. Discovered my husband 27 years old spoke badly about me 26 years old to female friends during a rough patch before marriage. Wanted to leave but stayed because I love him and he promised to change. A year later, our love is strong, but I still wonder if staying was right. Looking for outside perspectives. Story, feeling unappreciated and neglected in 6-year relationship, seeking advice. My fiancé's 35 years old and I am 29 years old have been fighting more recently because his actions seem selfish. We've been together for over 6 years, but I feel like a broken record constantly repeating myself without any change from him. I've asked him to learn how to cook and be more considerate in the bedroom. He doesn't cook at all, and when he tries, it's a disaster. In the bedroom, he always finishes, leaving me unsatisfied. Only recently has he started to clean up after himself because he was disgusted by his own bodily fluids. He hasn't matured much and still expects me to handle most things. When I went on a 6-month work trip, I hoped he'd learn to be more self-sufficient. Instead, he left the fridge untouched and didn't make any effort to cook, despite promising to make my favorite dishes. When I come home late from work in the gym, I often find him on the couch playing video games or watching TV, with nothing prepared. This frustrates me, especially since he doesn't take any initiative. Each year I've become more vocal about my needs and frustrations, which has led to more arguments. I feel like I'm talking to a toddler, reminding him to treat others how he wants to be treated. He often damages my things and tries to make up for it with money, but that doesn't solve the problem. I'm torn about whether to stay with him. My family loves him and I don't like to share anything bad about my relationships with anyone, even my friends. I can't imagine life without him, but I'm tired of feeling unappreciated and neglected. I'm seeking therapy to sort out my feelings and figure out the best path forward. I feel like I've tried everything and made every initiative. I'm tired of being sent memes in hopes of me forgiving him. I wish he'd stop apologizing and actually solve problems with me. My fiancés and I have been fighting more. I handle most of the chores and feel unappreciated. He doesn't take initiative in cooking or in the bedroom. Considering whether to stay with him and seeking therapy to sort out my feelings. Story, help should I, 23F, break up with my boyfriend, 28M, airing all our dirty laundry. My boyfriend, 28 years old, and I am 23 years old, have been officially together since February 2024. We started seeing each other in late September 2023. Though we did have an agreement to be exclusive and not see other people since October, we just weren't officially a couple, but by all merits we were one, and we both agreed on that. This is the first relationship for both of us, and as a chronic overthinker, I struggle to differentiate between anxious and legitimate thoughts. My boyfriend partied a lot for 2 years and had a large, outgoing group of party friends and ravers. Initially, everything was great, with only a few minor arguments. However, January was a tough month. My BF went out for drinks with a female friend, Lena, who is his brother's ex, and she confessed her feelings for him. He immediately left and told me everything. But I was hurt because we had agreed not to have one-on-one outings with the opposite sex and because he didn't tell me beforehand. He explained that he saw her as a sister, as she had been with his brother for over 5 years and they had broken up only a few months prior. Although I forgave him, it triggered significant trust issues, and I started checking his phone, with his permission. Afterward, I discovered messages from December where he and his friends discussed attractive women they saw while partying, and he made a comment about one, saying, "Too bad I can't." I forgave him again after he explained that his mentality was influenced by his friend group and their constant partying and festival attending. He also gave up the partying lifestyle and distanced himself from the toxic friend group to be with me and make our relationship work. In April, I learned that in December he had invited a female friend, Sarah, to a festival we were attending together in April with his friend group. I knew her as someone my BF's friend, Mike, was in love with and believed until then that the entire friend group had invited her. However, my BF gave me a false perception of her. She didn't know anyone from the group of 12 attending except for my BF, and while Mike was attending, he would be with his separate friend group. I also found out that my BF used to like Sarah before meeting me, though they had only communicated through Instagram and had never met in person. He had deleted his messages with her in January after the fight about Lena broke out because he said he knew any little thing would trigger me, which is true, TBH. My BF said they needed another person to fill an apartment vacancy and that he invited other friends before landing on her, but that before meeting me, they had already discussed her attending with his friend group. He promised me he didn't pursue her once his friend confided in him that he liked Sarah, which was before he met me. He said they only talked about parties infrequently since then. But now, I discovered that in January he invited her to another festival happening in July, supposedly for the same reason vacancy. Despite repeatedly asking if there was anything else I should know, he always denied it. He said he forgot about it since it's been 6 months. I don't know if I can trust him anymore. He cut off all his female friends and the toxic friend group after what happened with Lena. Which he offered to do. It was not a demand I made. I never had a problem with female friends until it became one. And even then it was his choice to cut them off. I only wanted him to block Lena. I have seen the difference in him. He is loyal, prioritizes me, and promises on his late parent that he never wanted to cheat on me and that he only saw Sarah as a friend and didn't think anything of the invite. And while he has been great since then, I struggle to process the pain from those months and earlier. I'm unsure what to believe or if this situation is normal. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Yes, I was the first person he invited to these festivals, and the names are fake. Is what my boyfriend did acceptable and not grounds for a breakup, and am I wrong in feeling betrayed? Story, I, at 28F, don't know how to mend my relationship with my ex, 33M. Ex 33 years old and I am 28 years old were in a long-term relationship that was majorly toxic. Both parties contributed to constant fighting, abusive threats, emotional manipulation, psychological abuse, cheating, etc. throughout the duration of this relationship. Before you write this story off and make the obvious comment that this relationship is unhealthy, just hear me out and put yourself in my shoes. I really love this man and in a lot of ways will always love this man. However, after years of putting up with toxicity and selfishness from him, I had finally had enough. Long story short, we moved out on our own and parted ways, except we never actually stopped talking or seeing each other. We go through phases where everything is wonderful and then I'll find out that he's been looking for new connections on dating apps. When this happens, I tend to wander off and start talking to new people as well. Both of us act like this is unacceptable behavior even though we are not technically in an exclusive relationship. He will tell me how much he loves me and then when we spend time together it seems like all we do is bicker or make jabs at each other. On top of that, there hasn't been any physical intimacy in weeks and he is pushing and pressuring me into it. I feel uncomfortable with this, but he makes a very fair claim that physical intimacy is an important factor for him. It's clear that the correct answer is to break up and go no contact, but for some reason I just can't seem to do it. I clearly love him very much even if I'm not completely emotionally invested in the relationship right now, and we don't seem to be meeting one another's needs. I also don't trust his words because they don't seem to always match his actions. I truly don't know what to do or how to get through this. We have been terrible to one another and I feel this immense guilt in both leaving and staying. My friends and family can't stand him and vice versa. Any advice on how to leave, get over this, or even fix this is encouraged. Ex and I had a toxic relationship but can't stop seeing each other. He ruined the relationship and I ruined the breakup. I feel like I'm either stuck in a cycle of abuse or that maybe I am the abuser. Story, I, 20M, cheated on my GF, 20F, of 2 years about a year into our relationship. I honestly never thought I'd cheat on anyone in my life. After my first girlfriend, I never cheated and I plan to keep it that way. Me and my GF both go to college together. I've been dating my current girlfriend since October of 2022 and around August 2023 I cheated on her with a hooker. That night I had just discovered an escort website and I didn't know one existed for my area, not even planning on going to meet one. I texted them seeing if I could get a response. Just since I was obviously horny and my GF was asleep in her apartment, most were fake, but when I noticed one was real, I fucked up and decided to drive to the motel location she sent. Once I got there I, not blaming anxiety but freaked out and thought I had to go through with it since I was already there. This woman was much less attractive than my GF and she gave me head and we almost fucked. I didn't want to, she was so unattractive to me, but I ejaculated in the condom the entire time before anything could happen. I left and the entire way home felt like the worst person alive. I got home immediately, showered, threw up, and laid in bed thinking about what to do. At the time I decided the best thing to do would just be to not tell her, as it would just create distrust in a relationship which is very trusting and great right now. I thought I would be able to just forget about it and commit myself to being a better man and never doing anything like that again, and I still stand by that and have tried to improve myself as a person this past year in the relationship and in general. However, anytime I'm alone or not busy, I find myself just non-stop thinking about what I did to her, who the longer I'm with her, the more I love her and feel awful about what I did. I feel like I need to tell her what happened. She's generally understanding, but nothing like this has ever happened between us before. I can't decide to tell her or not still. I could just continue living with it, but I don't know how long I could do that for. I know for myself I'd never do it again, but it's just impossible to prove that to her. Just looking for advice, love her and don't want to lose her, but I don't know what to do. I just want to sit down with her and explain what happened and her forgive me, but I don't know since she's such a large part of my life now. I don't want to lose her. Story: spouse is a chronic complainer. He does not see it this way. What is normal? I'm 33 years old. Spouse is 31 years old. Spouse complains about lack of sleep constantly. He's a chronic complainer but doesn't see it this way. What is normal? For context, we have an almost 3-year-old and my husband works from home. Since our child has been born, he's been the primary caretaker because I leave to a medical office Monday through Friday for work and am home by 4 p.m. to take over. He works overnight. He absolutely refuses outside help even now with his mom who's recently moved into town. He essentially has to function off of at best 3 to 6 hours of broken up sleep spread across pre-shift and post-shift. I absolutely get it. I've acknowledged how crappy this schedule is and continue to make effort to provide him relief here and there, like leaving early from work, taking PTO, etc. And genuinely, when I know for a fact he didn't sleep well or had a terrible day where he has to function off of the bare minimum, I don't care if he says a complaint or two about being exhausted. However, this is an everyday thing. It is the theme of our conversation 80% of the time. If it's bath time or having family time, it's an ever-revolving wheel of very negative ick about grocery shopping. I'm exhausted. And usually his complaints tie to our child. He woke up too early this morning and I'm too exhausted, then rants about how he doesn't know how he's going to function for work. Or it's I couldn't sleep well because of their tantrum. The big picture here is that the reason why he's not getting enough sleep is because of our child's schedule. Just like any parent. But to complain about it nearly all day and all night long. Last winter he spent the entire 3 months complaining on how cold it was, begging every night for the summer to get here. He complained nearly every single day and night how it affected his back, and he'd at least once a day make a comment about praying to the God for summer to get here. We live in a southern state, so once it got here it was hot. What does he end up doing? Complains every day how hot it is. How miserable he is. How he can't work in the garage well because of how hot it gets in there. He works in the garage to take meetings so he doesn't wake up our child, and now I've had a bad taste in my mouth because, didn't you ask for this? He's also extremely unpleasant to be around in the state where he's in his complaining mode. I want to know, am I just being insensitive? He says that his entire childhood family did this. They'd just complain to each other as if it was a fun pastime hobby or something. In my household growing up, it was seen extremely negatively. You'd come off ungrateful, as a non-doer, and nut up shut up type household. I need some desperate insight. I have tried the shoulder or solution. His answer to that was he never wants a solution. He just wants to complain. Is chronic complaining totally normal? Again. He doesn't even use the word complaining. He sees it as a fun pastime and a way to be supported. Story: my 29F boyfriend, 28M, sexted another girl when we exclusive, but not dating. How can I move forward from this? My boyfriend Harry, 28 years old, and I am 29 years old, matched on Hinge in February, met in March, and started dating in May. On our second date, I asked him when was the last time he slept with someone else, and he said 2 weeks. I had a friends with benefits Jake, and I slept with him the morning I met Harry. I told Harry this because I didn't want to lie about it. Harry was visibly upset when I told him this, and when I told my friends later, they all agreed I should have lied about it. The woman Harry slept with before me was a 40-year-old friends with benefits Melissa that he met in 2023. I'm not sure how often they saw each other, but from how he describes it, he was basically a sugar baby. He cut things off with Melissa when he dated his last ex July 2023 to January 2024, but hooked up with Melissa after breaking up with his ex Nina. The way Harry describes Melissa makes her sound a little crazy, For lack of a better word, she would write him emails, send long texts, and leave voicemails for him. Harry's birthday was last Saturday and we were hanging out with his friends. A little after midnight, he received a phone call but didn't pick up. He said it was his mom who was calling. I thought it was strange that his mom would call him that late and that he didn't pick up. I asked him the next day if he called his mom back yet, but he told me it was Melissa who called him. I became annoyed because Nina, his ex, also texted him happy birthday. Nina still has feelings for Harry and has also been sending him texts throughout our entire relationship. He would either ignore Nina or would give really short responses. I'm not a jealous or insecure type of person, but I became upset because I knew if the situation was reversed, Harry would be upset at me if an ex kept texting me and I didn't block them. Basically, I became upset out of principle, if that makes sense. Because I felt like Harry was being a hypocrite. I thought to myself, why does he expect me to block my previous partners if he hadn't taken the initiative to do the same? So I ended up asking Harry to block both Nina and Melissa. He agreed to do so, but I was still annoyed that I had to ask him to do this, when I had cut things off with Jake willingly the day after I met Harry. While Harry was sleeping, I looked through his phone to make sure he blocked them. I ended up finding texts of Harry sexting Melissa about a month after we met. We technically weren't officially dating at the time, but we were definitely exclusive and had talked about being exclusive. I clearly remember that night he sexted her. I was asleep because I had work the next day, but he went out drinking with his friends and was drunk. His messages said things like, "I want to fuck you right now," and "You want me to fuck you like last time," but when he was sober the next day, he stopped responding to Melissa. In early June, Harry sent 2 messages to Melissa, but it showed up as unsent on his phone. I'm assuming he drunk texted her again, but I'm not sure if he unsent the messages when he was drunk or sober. I confronted him about what I saw. He took full responsibility for what he did and wasn't even mad that I looked through his phone. He explained he had always been insecure and upset at me sleeping with Jake the day we met. I agree that it's weird to sleep with 2 people in the same day, but I slept with Jake before I met Harry. When he texted Melissa in April, he said it was because he was drunk and really upset about the whole Jake situation. He said he has no idea what he sent to Melissa in June or why he texted her, but he's guessing he was upset at me when he was drunk that day. Harry explained that all of his behaviors came from his insecurities and wanting to have a backup plan in case I ever left him for someone better. He said this was the reason he never blocked Melissa, combined with the fact that she would buy him things. He said that although he was texting Melissa those things when he was drunk, he didn't actually mean them. He never texted her when he was sober. Story: mentally drained from family, so problems. I can't take it. How do I make it stop? I am 31 years old, felt like I had a nearly perfect life. And I was always seen as the perfect daughter. Then I met my first boyfriend 30 years old and it felt like he made my life better. And then it went downhill. I'm not sure if I need advice or just moral support, I just feel overwhelmed. I keep having fights with him and my parents in their 60s, and most often than not I am not the initiator, and I hate it because it's like I'm never allowed to have peace anymore. If my isn't picking fights with me, it's my parents picking fights with me about him. I feel helpless, drained and like I want to cry. I don't know what to do. My heart aches. It's like the only time I'm truly happy now is at work when I'm away from everyone I love. My parents told me they hate him, they can't stand him, they want me to dump him and they say he's going to ruin my life. It doesn't matter what he does, they find a way to criticize him and remind me of how much they hate him. I've been with him nearly 2 years, is constantly thinking negative about them and has insulted them to my face. We've had big fights over this when he has episodes. And I don't think he likes them much in general anymore. The truth is I love my a lot and he does make me happy, even if my posts don't always reflect it. I love being in his arms. He's my best friend. And I miss him when we're apart. We have fun together and he does try to take care of me. But he has some mental health struggles and that's led to emotional abuse toward me during episodes and that makes me miserable. It got really bad. Long story, something happened that my parents got involved and while the situation between me and has since improved, his episodes are less and he's worked to improve. Their relationship with him is strained. My relationship with my parents in turn is not as good as it was because I've stand up for him when I thought my parents were being unfair, just like I've stood up for them when I thought he was being unfair. This is getting to be too much. I feel depressed. I feel drained. Anxious. Everyone is breaking my heart. I want peace. Can it get better? How can I find peace? What can I do? I feel hopeless. My parents and BF don't like each other and they all keep picking fights with me, making me miserable. What can I do to make it stop? Story: the guy that I'm in 24F seeing is starting to act weird and I need help out of this situation. I think I've made a mistake. I have gotten myself into a really bad situation. I was desperate for what I thought was the type of love I needed to feel normal, but now I want absolutely nothing to do with this man or romantic relationships anymore in general. I do not look like an adult. It's genes. My whole family looks way younger than their actual age, with people thinking my mom is my sister sometimes. I look underaged, and have had people guess anywhere between 14 to 18. When I was in Florida about a month ago by myself for vacation, I even had people asking me where my mom was, and the security people in the airport pulled me aside to ask me if I was traveling with anyone. I am not particularly short, but have a very skinny build, ridiculous baby face, and braces, which doesn't help with everything. Nobody can ever guess that I am my real age. I try to hide it most of the time honestly because I'm starting to feel a certain way about getting older. I am not saying this to brag, but it is relevant to what I'm about to explain. Because of how I look, I usually only get hit on by two types of guys. The first group are obvious teenage boys who think I'm their age, and the second is older, usually middle-aged men for whatever reason. There is no in-between. Rarely does any guy my age actually flirt with me, probably because they think I'm younger. This used to really bother me because I am not interested in teenage boys for obvious reasons: age, maturity difference, and because they scare me tbh, and older men who hit on me in that context creep me out. No matter what I did, it wouldn't change. I tried to dress more sexy, but that's not me at all. I don't like dressing sexy and it makes me look awkward. I have a very particular, girly way of dressing that involves a lot of pink and pastel colors. Probably doesn't help, but I can't help what styles I'm attracted to. About 7 months ago, while I was out at the library, a guy approached me while I was sitting at a table reading. He started flirting with me, asking me about what I was reading, and said he thought I was very cute. We ended up exchanging numbers. I admit I was a bit flattered by the attention, and he was cute, so I thought, why not, I'll call him just to see what he's like. He looked to be maybe in his early 30s, which isn't too old for me to date. I called him the next day, and we started hanging out a lot. He took me on dates, and we went on walks, and to other nice places. I found out his age on the fourth date. He is actually in his mid-40s. We didn't label ourselves as anything at first. Despite his age, he was really nice to be around. He didn't demoralize me for my more childlike interests, or way of clothing, or anything. He actually would buy me clothes that matched my aesthetic: stuffed animals, Disney things. Yes, I'm a Disney girl, and called me his baby, little girl. I thought it was just a cute little pet name. I didn't feel weird around him, I actually felt like there was finally someone who understood me. But everything changed when he found out my age about 3 weeks ago. Yes, I never mentioned it, because he never asked, and didn't seem to care. He started making these weird comments about my age. How when I eventually turn 25 everything goes downhill from there. He keeps asking me if I would stay the same for him, his baby girl. He's cold but affectionate at the same time, which confuses me. Now he wants me to do all of these role-playing things, and to call him daddy, which I've never done. I'll be getting my braces off soon. I was really excited about this because I've had them in my mouth for years, but he seemed disappointed, and said that maybe I should prolong my appointments, keep scheduling out, because they're a part of me that he really likes. I am starting to get a weird feeling about him, but I don't want to jump to conclusions. I feel like maybe I want to stop dating hanging around him, but we've been together so much that even when I tell myself not to respond any more to his calls, I always end up calling him anyway. If I don't respond after so many hours, he'll show up to my house, which is bad, because my mom I still live with her knows nothing about him, and I don't want her to find out about him. And even though he makes sometimes hurtful comments about my age, I'm attached to the way he's made me feel. How he's made me feel normal for my other interests, and liked. I have never been in a relationship before, and I thought I wanted one. But I honestly don't want to be bothered by men anymore, at least right now. I feel stuck and torn. I'm sick of being in a tug-of-war between his coldness and affection. I told him yesterday that I needed a break, but he blew up at me. I don't think he'll leave me alone, and I don't know what else to do. I feel like life won't be the same without him, but I also feel so exhausted, and I don't think this is what relationships are supposed to feel like. Is there a way that I could talk to him to make him understand my perspective? I'm thinking maybe we can still be semi-distant friends who occasionally hang out if he stops making comments about my age and my appearance, which is honestly not flattering to be told I look like a little girl. I'm trying not to get my mom or brother involved, who I know will start seeing red and make the situation worse. I am starting to feel weird about the guy I've been seeing dating. He made me feel understood and appreciated at first, but since he found out my age, is starting to act cold toward me, make comments about my weight, and calling me a little girl. I'm trying to cut down contact without things escalating and need some help. I have no experience in relationships. Story: my boyfriend, 25M, is not who I, 25F, thought he was. How do I move on from this? I don't even know where to start. I feel like my whole worldview has changed. First of all, I know that every year starts with my boyfriend is the most lovely person. And I thought the same. But just so you don't think I'm completely delusional, every person who has met my boyfriend or heard about some of the stuff he's done for me have loved him. He's usually very attentive, caring, plans nice surprises, emotionally supportive, affectionate, etc., etc. Genuinely felt like a book character written by a woman. My mom loves him too. It all started when he got demotivated and then very depressed because he wasn't doing well in his career. I was worried about him and our future TBH, so I was encouraging him to apply to jobs, etc., to which he said he would, but still have very little motivation. Anyways, long story short is I was constantly reminding him and asking if he's been applying, and I guess he got stressed out because he basically lied to me and said he was applying to stuff when he didn't. He lied about this a few times over a couple of weeks. He knows it's wrong, so he's not justifying it, but he explained in his brain he thought by not disappointing me and saying he already did something would give him motivation to actually do it. Anyways, I thought this was very out of character, so I decided to forgive after a bit of arguing, etc., but in the back of my head I felt like something was off and I couldn't trust him, so I dug through his phone, which for the past 10 years I've had access to. He shared all his pins and passwords to me. While digging, I found a conversation this happened 6 years ago with a friend who was a girl. They discussed some sexual stuff, not sexting, but more like I like this, and later things like, I would like to do this with my GF, or we're both switches. But she also divulges quite a lot of sexual stories. He doesn't react a lot to them. She goes, I've shared a lot of secrets, now it's your turn. And he shares that when he was young, way before he met me, he experienced a hand job from another guy. I've literally never heard this story, and I just feel very betrayed. I've had chats like these with female friends and gay guys, but I don't think it's ever something I've shared with a straight guy friend. 1:1. I get that he made the existence of me very plain, but just feels odd. I feel like boundaries were completely crossed in telling other people things that I don't know. Feels like emotional cheating. Anyway, I'm going to confront him and very likely leave. But I just want perspectives. Or like advice from people that have had something similar happen to them. I know it's 6 years ago, but I feel like I don't know him anymore. I'm so perplexed because this doesn't match with the person I thought I knew. At all shy, reserved, very loving, telling me he misses me every day, writes love letters, gets giddy when seeing me kind of person. How can you fake being so in love for the last 10 years? Any pearls of wisdom very greatly appreciated. Boyfriend of 10 years spoke about sexual topics not on a sexting way with a female friend. And spoke about a sexual encounter from before he met me that I didn't know about. I'm likely going to leave, but how do I deal with this? Any other perspectives? Story: my M29 girlfriend, F29, is continually getting upset at me. I am 29 years old. Recently began seeing a girl 27 years old from Mexico. Lately, I dread going out with her because there's always an issue. This week, I added her to my gym membership and yesterday invited her to go work out together. We were supposed to meet outside at around 5:30 p.m., but she didn't arrive until about 6:15 p.m. and since she doesn't have a phone right now, I had to wait outside the entire time. After our workout, I went to change while she finished jogging. She asked if I was going to take a shower because she was, and I said no. I asked if she minded if I waited next door at a bar where my friends work at, assuming she'd be 20 to 30 minutes, but she got annoyed, so I waited outside the changing room for her. After 15 minutes, she came out, and I suggested an Uber to her place. She got mad we weren't going to the bar next door. I explained I thought she'd be longer, which is the only reason I mentioned it, and didn't mind going, but that I couldn't stay late as I needed to be up early. She gave me attitude and was dismissing me, so I just ordered the Uber. At her place, I stayed longer to let her cool down, and we talked outside. She accused me of not wanting to be seen with her and not communicating properly. I explained I never planned to go out after the gym and had told her I wouldn't be able to stay out late. She accused me of lying since it was 10:45 p.m., saying we had time to go out the bar. I told her I stayed to let her cool down and talk and that I originally planned to be home by 9 p.m. because I'm usually asleep by 9 p.m. and wake at 5 a.m. We talked for almost an hour, and when I went to call a taxi, she accused me of always running away whenever we talk. I explained I had to be up early and she insisted she knew that and wasn't trying to keep me. I eventually called the taxi and left, getting home after 12 p.m. and did not fall asleep until after 1 a.m. I don't know what to do anymore. No matter what I do, she finds something to be upset about. Do I just end the relationship? Or is it this salvageable? The following are just a few of the things she's accused me of or gotten upset over. Got upset after our first date because she saw me out with a female friend a week later. Got upset when I invited her to my place to go for a walk in a nearby park to see a lake she said she wanted to visit. Supposedly I wasn't respecting her integrity as a woman and people may get the wrong impression. This was before we were official. Upset that I wasn't picking her up and dropping her off for our dates, even though I don't drive. Didn't hold her hand while walking. I stopped by a bar after work where my friends work and she accused me of going there to spend time with my ex since she also works there, wasn't working there that night. Got upset when I told her I wish I could run my hand across her body supposedly after 2 months of seeing each other. That's too intimate of a thing to say. Got upset when I indicated that her skin tone was slightly darker than mine and she accused me of being racist towards South Americans after she was just comparing the fact that I get sunburnt and she doesn't. Walked ahead of her after an outdoor movie where I got bitten over 40 times by mosquitoes. I wanted out of there. My girlfriend is continually getting upset at me and accusing me of things. I really like her, but I'm at my wit's end. Story: at an impasse with girlfriend about her education. What do I do? 26M and 26F. My girlfriend is really upset about her choice of schools and wants my help, but didn't apply and doesn't seem to be putting in effort. What do I do? My girlfriend is bright and driven, but deeply depressed and prone to shutdowns. She dropped out of art school as an upper junior a long time ago in the midst of family and personal chaos. Now, 6 years later, she's completed an associate's degree and wants to finish a bachelor's. The problem is that she doesn't like the only school that took her a high-quality but less exciting local public college. The problem isn't her grades. She graduated summa cum laude with glowing recommendations for multiple professors. I told her while she was applying that a full-time job plus a full course load and an internship would make it near impossible to make a good application anywhere. She chose to continue full throttle anyway and missed nearly every deadline. She specifically chose not to apply to the local Ivy League institution because it would be embarrassing, in her words. Now she is in tears every single day as she feels her potential is being wasted. It doesn't help that said public college has horrible bureaucracy and has messed up her credit evaluation. For the record, I agree that she could get into a better institution if she put her mind to it. She has been in deeper moments of crisis shouting at me and telling me I didn't help enough, but I just am not sure what I should have done without her giving herself the space to work on it. A few times I've suggested applying for the coming spring, but she just starts self-deprecating and shutting that down. She begs for help and accuses me of getting in the way of her dreams, but then turns down every specific offer of help. I am feeling really drained. I want to know what personal changes I can make to stop feeling so drained and support her better. When I began writing this, she was on her way out to the gym. She stopped right at the front door to turn around and complain about the school situation. This escalated into telling me how ugly she thought she was. I tried reassuring her, and she opened her phone and started going through pictures of herself from years ago to illustrate her point. This escalated into calling herself a failure with nowhere to go in the world, which then escalated into throwing her phone and making suicide jokes. Finally, I couldn't take it and had a panic attack, at which point her mood changed and she began kissing me all over, at which I could only cringe, and then left for the gym as if nothing had happened. This all took over 3 hours. There are of course many sides to every story. Here are the ways I give her a hard time. I am a teacher and the generic book smart type. She has significant trauma with school, and especially with her father, who used to shake her and call her stupid. She really doesn't like my intellectual show-offy manner. I try to minimize this and talking about work in general, but I know that I haven't done enough. I could certainly be a better listener and better at responding to her when she spirals. I know that I am supposed to remain calm and reassuring, but it does hurt. The result is that I am at first robotic and then despondent. I just still haven't found the best way to be supportive. I myself have rather low self-confidence. I know this is really unattractive and not very healthy to be around. There is surely much more that I don't see about myself. How should I support her? To what extent should I be helping her? I can't start these applications for her, that would be a breach of ethics. But should I just accidentally do so anyway? This is important to me, and I want to make sure she has a good outcome. Story: should I let go? I am tired. I have attachment issues and my BF has commitment issues. He also did something that betrayed my trust, and although I decided to forgive him, I am struggling. Hi everybody. I 23 years old VE been dating my boyfriend 27 years old for more than 3 years now. We really love each other and I really do want to marry him someday. I know he feels the same way. But throughout our relationship, we've had many problems that made almost break up many times. At the beginning of the relationship I developed anxiety and starting depending on him too much. We've worked through it and now it's much better, but it's still there. I always want to see him more than he wants to see me. I want out to move together and he doesn't want to yet. I live alone and he still lives with his parents, so he first wants to live alone and is looking for an apartment. I understand his reasons, but I am always feeling like I want more and he wants less, and makes me feel unloved even though I know he adores me. On the other hand, he has commitment issues, started therapy and is getting better, but it always hurts when he hesitates on giving a step forward. But then, when everything started getting better, a friend of mine found him on Tinder once. I talked to him about it and he said he and his friends had downloaded it only one night to look for people for a pregame before a party, which I know is true because he did it before we dated, but I had specifically told him not to do it anymore since it made me feel unrespected. I took this really badly and started having trust issues. We've been working together on it since then, but it's been 6 months and I still don't truly trust him. But I took the decision to forgive him and move on. We've really been doing better and communicating a lot. However, after 3 years and so much trouble and fights, I start to wonder if someday we will be at peace and happy. Don't get me wrong, I am really happy when I am with him and with the life we share. It really is amazing. It feels like Omovai. But when we start arguing or when I feel insecure, my whole world crumbles. I really need some empathy here. Story: BF flying out for 3 weeks, feeling extremely sad and nervous. How do I cope? My boyfriend 21 years old and me 20 years old have been together for nearly 6 months and 2 days from now. He is currently boarding his flight back to his home. He has not seen his family in years as he moved abroad at a young age. I am very happy he is getting to see his family, however I am extremely scared and nervous. We have fought a lot over stuff due to miscommunication, his expectations, some stuff I did, or how we both hurt each other unknowingly due to both of our insecurities. This is also my first actual serious relationship where the end goal for both of us is marriage. I was in a relationship last year, but it was barely 3 months and my ex cheated. Me and my boyfriend did have a major fight, 3 consecutive fights which lasted 2 weeks. One was my fault, it was something related to trust, the other 2 were ignited by him for either no exact reason, but the premise being I wasn't being a good listener and I was not working on myself. We both come from very different backgrounds, both financially and culturally, and we jumped into a relationship within 10 days of meeting, so this is all understandable. However, since the last fight, less than 2 weeks back I did consider breaking up because of his tone and not being mature enough, but all the memories and everything came back. He apologized for his tone and behavior, promised to work on it while I promised to work on myself and our issues too. He said he would make sure I won't regret it. Now back to these few days, he suddenly needed to fly to his hometown as his parents kept insisting on wanting to see him while he was avoiding it. His cousin fell sick, so it triggered his parents to get him back home. He is now happy about going, and as much as I hate the fact we will be long distance for 3 weeks, our communication sorta sucks, lack of proper internet connectivity, and since he will be busy with traveling, health checkups, seeing family, it would be hard to keep in touch as much. I am a very emotional person. I have anxiety and ADHD and tend to overthink and go insane a lot. A little clingy too, I just love with passion. Now that he is flying out and I won't see him, I'm really sad. He used to sleep over 2 nights a week, and sometimes we would see each other 3 to 4 times a week aside from daily FaceTimes or calls and sending reels. Just the fact we haven't gone more than a week without seeing each other, our communication compromised, my insecurity in him not texting as often or being as expressive since our fight is really making me go crazy. He did get me a plushie, let me take his hoodies, got me some kinky stuff for our time, and even spent the last 2 to 3 days with me since he had to fly out, and even started posting me on his close friends, something he never really did, and only started doing it after our fight cause I always posted him on my spam and he knew I like it. He usually doesn't post stories often and is worried people will put a bad eye on us, but him not being as expressive on text makes it harder for me. He even told his roommates how life has become simpler and better for him cause I'm here and he is able to focus on work too. Though we fight so much, he cares about me and is always there through my mental health struggles, buys me courses to upskill in life and get ahead of my peers and everything. Earlier he used to send many paragraphs or voice notes, but now it's like I am the one texting first most times or him not opening messages till I double text and crap. And he won't say I love you as much as what I feel, though he does say it otherwise. He is not as expressive and admits it. All of this just scares me so much. He told me this isn't a goodbye and he will be back soon and promises we will make it way stronger than before. Yeah, I do get it, things don't necessarily stay the same after a fight, but I just need some sort of reassurance. What he says doesn't give me enough hope right now. My campus therapist said that it is a good time for us to know more about each other, manage the distance, and I get myself back on track to work on myself like I was hoping to do. But again, the overwhelming feelings and fears has made me go insane. Anyone has tips on how to manage my emotions and actually stop getting so damn emotional over this? Boyfriend of 6 months is flying out for 3 weeks and our communication may be strained. Past fights and instability is adding to my fears and insecurities, though we both vowed to make it work and become stronger. I need tips on how to work on managing my emotions, stop getting emotional and make it work. Story: my partner, 20M, and I, 21M, have different values. Should we break up? To get things straight, I love, respect my partner very much. We meet each other's emotional needs. Our communication is great, and we respect and unconditionally support each other. However, I'm deeply scared because of our radical differences in values. I'll provide brief examples to illustrate these differences. For instance, on family, he deeply values blood ties, while I believe family should be a unit made out of love that one can choose. He believes children must love their parents because they gave them life, while I think parents must earn a child's respect. We both want to have children, but for radically different reasons. He sees children as a way to leave a legacy, and he has expressed that he would pressure his children to have their own children so he can have grandchildren. I see children as an opportunity to learn and develop virtues, and I plan to give full autonomy to my children. I see my legacy through my work and the ideas I pass on to those who look up to me. He also has expressed how we would pass on gender expectations to his children. He would pierce his daughter's ears and dress her in ball gowns. I would fiercely oppose any body modifications without consent and believe in dressing children in comfortable clothes, allowing for play. I would have no issue if my child turns out to be girly, tomboy, or even transgender. Our backgrounds also lead to misunderstandings. I was raised in a wealthy Latin American household by extremely liberal parents, while he was also raised in Latin America, but his family is middle class. My background has pushed me to believe in smart work rather than hard work. As my parents made their wealth from social connections and strategic investment, he believes not in smart work but in hard work from rule following. He was raised to follow the rules and aim for traditional measurements of high achievement. I was raised with complete freedom to be autonomous, with no parental expectations, and with just support for my decisions. My parents even allowed me to homeschool myself with the support of great educators. This led me to an elite school, a 4.0 GPA in CS, and to build my own software company. I want to know how to approach a long-term relationship. On one hand, he recently turned 20, is still figuring things out, and is heavily reliant on his parents. He might grow to at least understand my outlook on life, which he currently respects but doesn't fully comprehend. Despite our love for each other, should I consider breaking up and finding someone who is a better fit? While he is a great partner in college, it would be a deal breaker if he fails to understand my views, not necessarily share in the long term when we're contemplating marriage and children. For more context, I'm high functioning autistic, and he is neurotypical. My partner and I currently share different values, which isn't a problem now, but might be in the future. Should we break up if these differences could become significant issues later on? Story: to support my partner or walk away. Me, 44 years old, and him, 47 years old, have been dating for over 2 years. The first 14 months we lived in our own houses and saw each other 3 times a week as we lived a 60 minutes drive away. We were really good at planning and making sure we had quality time and great balance, having our own social life and felt included in each other's lives. Life was great. I moved in with him for 7 months, as sold my house and was waiting on my new house to be built. The plan was to lodge at his, suck up the 2-hour round commute to work. If it was good, then he would move into my new house, which was only 20 minutes from each of our workplaces. First 3 months was good, then it wasn't great. We ended up living like roommates. He spent a lot of time in the pub or playing his computer. Slept a lot, was moody, and stopped spend quality time with me and helping with chores. I missed my social life and closeness to friends. I did say he looked depressed, but he denied it. I moved into my house and we split up. We got back together a month later. He said that he was depressed and work stress was high and sought help. Said he was only sleeping 4 hours a night. He couldn't cope, and only way to cope was to shut down. We agreed boundaries and ground rules. It's been 3 months and we are struggling to spend time together more than 2 days a week. He said he is so tired and work is crazy, so we are not doing much and he falls asleep lots. We had plans with friends over weekends, so doing really spend much time there. He said he feels that there is something wrong with him, but will not visit a doctor and is still unable to sleep. Says he doesn't want to be ill. Last night he was supposed to come to mine at normal time. I got dinner ready and texted him. No response. Called, no response. I ate dinner alone. 3 hours later he called and apologized, saying he fell asleep on his sofa and only woke up. I can believe this, as he is exhausted. But I did express how unhappy I was at him, as I feel he is not putting effort in. Just feeling that past patterns are appearing and he will shut me out. He says he is not and is trying, but feels so ill. I have said he needs to go to the doctor, as he had been saying for 4 months. Said if he doesn't go by next week we can't continue, as the overarching theme is him not being well and he needs to take ownership, as I can't cope with this long term. So was I right? His illness, depression, is affecting our relationship. Any advice, as I am supporting and understanding, but he needs to get help to start getting better. Partner is unwell but is not seeking help. It's affecting our relationship and my compassion is going. Story: how to tell if my 25F partner, 25M, is emotionally or verbally abusive. I am 25 years old and am starting to think that my relationship with 25 years old my boyfriend of about 1 year is not just toxic but abusive. He's always been quick to anger and a little jealous, but recently he said and done things that are making me question my perceptions of myself and the relationship. I called a female friend recently who I hadn't spoken to in months, and we spoke for about 30 to 40 minutes catching up. He acted weird on the phone call and afterwards he exploded. He accused me of talking to her about other men and intentionally trying to cover the conversation. He said I locked the door to the bathroom, I was peeing. He said I turned the bedroom fan on so he couldn't hear. We turned the fan on to go to sleep and it was nearly 10 p.m. He said I left the room to hide the conversation. He was already in bed and I was trying to be respectful because he wakes up 3 hours before me. He refused to listen to my explanation. The next day he apologized profusely over text, which is a pattern in our relationship. Outbursts followed by long apologies the next day. Today, I worked a 10-hour shift while he was at home. I did a 50-hour week as my boss was out sick. I get home and I'm talking to him while opening the fridge and he goes past me and I accidentally shut the door on his hand that has a blister on it. Although his hand was fine, he turns to me and screams, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" in my face. I apologized and said although I was looking, I wasn't really seeing as my brain is fried and I'm tired. He proceeded to go off and then was even angrier when I was upset that he screamed in my face. He refused to apologize for that. That argument then derailed despite me trying to end it multiple times because it was no longer productive. We were just going in loops. I tried to turn and watch TV, and he stood in front of the TV. I recorded part of our conversation. We're in a one-party consent state, and in those two recordings, he called me a narcissist, a pathological liar, autistic, and an asshole. I want to upload those so people can hear his voice and the context because I'm really feeling insane right now, but I'm unsure if that's against this sub's rules. At one point, he realized I was recording and took my phone and threw it on the floor in the other room. I got up and got it, and he seemed to back off from that once I told him me recording was legal in this state and that if he took my phone again, I would consider myself to be in actual danger and would leave. I've been thinking about leaving him, but it's hard as we live together. Now, I'm worried that I actually need to figure something out and quickly because I'm worried this is going to derail. He claims to love me and that I mean the world to him, but I once told him I wanted to break up and I'll never forget his response: "You deserve whatever I do, honestly." My 25 years old, boyfriend 25 years old, and I fight a lot, but I'm unsure if it's starting to become abusive. Story: I don't want a relationship with my sister, what do I do? My brother is associating with our half-sister, I don't care to, and it's becoming uncomfortable. I'm typically pretty loquacious, so I'll try to cut it down. I am 38 years old, grew up with both my parents, and 36 years old my younger brother. My dad was married before my mom and had 2 kids, a son and a daughter, both of whom are about 10 years older than me. Not super relevant, but my parents divorced when I was in college. My understanding is that my dad wasn't perfect, but his ex was vindictive and fed my half-siblings a bunch of crap so they'd hate him, which worked for a while. Eventually, my half-bro reconciled. I guess my half-sis did to some extent, because I met her and her husband when I was a teen. It was easy to form a friendship of sorts with my half-brother because we had similar interests. I think his sister never fully came around to my dad, which, whatever. Reader's Digest version is that I have a fine relationship with half-bro and, for most of my life, no contact with his sister. Recently, my younger brother got all 4 of us together. It was a fine time. I enjoy hanging out with my brothers, and the half-sister seemed fine enough, besides lightly shit-talking my dad, despite not talking to him for decades. Her son was super nice, and I thought we all had a good time. At the end of the night, I was completely blindsided by her suggesting we should have a heart-to-heart of sorts. I know my younger brother had a convo with her about. I honestly don't know what, but anyway. I have no investment in that relationship. I absolutely meant no offense, but I told her I didn't feel it was necessary, but we could, if it would make her happy. I definitely admit that that seems a bit harsh, but I didn't intend it to be. I have no problem with her, but I also don't have the emotional and mental bandwidth right now to try to form a new relationship, let alone one I don't care about. And I don't feel compelled to put myself out for it. I'm nearly 40, she's never made an attempt at a relationship before, and that's fine. I only mean to say that she didn't spend her life pining for a relationship with her half-sister, and that absolutely does not hurt my feelings. She was evidently very offended. My younger brother invited me to another gathering, and while I'd love to go, I don't want to deal with her. She's rather dramatic, and I anticipate an issue with us both being there. My ideal scenario is getting her to understand that we are basically strangers, and I like hanging out with her, but we're not family and I don't care for us to be. Kind of makes the gathering complicated. For what it's worth, I understand how this sounds, but I hold no animosity towards her. It is truly complete indifference, and I have too much on my plate right now to feign caring. So, I'm not sure how to proceed with the invite. Story: my 20F girlfriend, 20F, is not responding, but I can't tell if she ghosted or something happened. Is there anything else I can do? Advice on moving on from this? What do you think happened? My girlfriend, 20 years old, has been radio silent for 3 weeks, and I'm at the point of considering it a ghosting, but the suddenness of it has me so worried I find it impossible to just move on from her character. We matched on Tinder about 3 months ago, real romantic, and were only official for about a week before she disappeared. We had been going on weekly dates since we matched, most of these lasting close to 12 hours as we'd get lunch, go for a 4-mile walk, and talk. She brought me a flower she picked on almost every date and has been incredibly considerate and sweet. Our interests are very different, but that didn't hold us back as we could carry a conversation about anything and found things to do together we both enjoyed. She grew up in a small, rural town and comes from a homophobic family who she is not out to yet, as she has reason to suspect they may disown her and plans to wait a few more years. She had been hoping to get off work to visit family for the 4th, My last message before she disappeared was asking if she would be able to. I never received confirmation that she was, but I assumed that she did and was not responding due to travel and family, and initially that she had decided to extend her trip when the silence carried on through the weekend. No social media. A combination of her upbringing being largely analog and being a comp sci major giving her the ick towards social media. She's not on anything but Indeed for school, networking. I have attempted to add her on Indeed in case there is a phone-related reason we have lost contact, and at least if my connection is rejected I know she doesn't want to talk but is alive. The message has been pending for just under a week. I also sent a message on Tinder with my hashtag because we exchanged those in person, but she deleted the app and doesn't appear to have been on, and if her account is with her number and that changed she wouldn't have access to that either. She did not always text every day. I did not mind this as we had outstanding conversation in person and she showed her interest face to face rather than digitally. But this did leave sometimes a gap of a day, maybe two, where I would not hear from her, even on her day off, and when she did text, it was usually for a few minutes and she'd be unreachable again for about 24 hours. This was probably my biggest discomfort with the relationship, which I had intended to discuss the next time we saw each other, and may be the reason that most heavily influences my belief she ghosted. I do not know her apt. There were at least 2 dates where we sat in my car for an hour, talking when I dropped her off, but she did not invite me up or tell me the for future reference. I interpreted this at the time as it being late, 10 p.m. 12, and her not trying to keep me as I always worked the next morning, not wishing to insinuate more by inviting me up. The last time I saw her I said if we were going to chat for an hour so often she'd have to invite me soon. BC the car was uncomfortable, but that I wasn't inviting myself up. She chuckled and said okay. She did not initiate hand-holding or the few kisses we had, but her face lit up when I asked to. When I asked if there was a reason she had not been initiating she said she did not want to make me uncomfortable, something I would attribute to a homophobic upbringing I can relate to but have personally much more overcome. We only became official on our last date, about 5 days before she disappeared. She has Android, my texts don't say delivered to any Android friends, but her phone still rings before voicemail when I call so I do not believe I am blocked. Which means calls and texts just asking if she was okay went through and were ignored. Kind of hard to believe she would do that, even if she did not want to speak with me. And if she doesn't want to speak with me, why am I not just blocked? I have Apple, is there an indicator I've been blocked that I'm missing? She has had relationships before, at least 2, so homophobia has not held her back in the past. She identifies as a lesbian and appears to have no shame or trepidation with it. I am concerned however if it came up while she was home for the 4th somehow and if there was some sort of intervention, those can be bad. She had recently been diagnosed with a heart murmur, which a doctor just determined to be harmless, but I can't stop worrying something happened in relation to this. I asked her 4 to 5 dates in what she was looking for. The answer was a committed relationship. We had a laugh that we'd both attempted casual in the past but did not have the capacity to date casually. She acknowledged that she may not have time for dates weekly when school started, but that she would focus on getting a car so she could more easily come to my side of town rather than bus or Uber. BC she felt bad. I was making the full commute and would drop her off at home after. What I gleaned from this is we had agreed on our intentions and were beginning to solidify future plans, intentions. As stated above, she brought me flowers, and she was first to pick up the check, which I reciprocated the next date, so she shouldn't have felt I was taking advantage. We were taking turns. Both I would consider strong indicators someone is invested because they are showing commitment through actions that are not required of them. We had been making plans for the Renaissance Fair and she was planning her costume as well as the expense and how she could invest in something more pricey if she could also wear it in her regular rotation. I would consider this another sign of intending on at least a near future together because of how much thought she was putting into plans. I looked her up online for any obituaries, there were none, but the website I was forwarded to was Truthfinder, which notified me she was flagged as being on a government watch list. I was not looking for this information, but, what? I wondered if this was related to the screening process for her military application, but according to the definition on the site that shouldn't be the case. I'm not about to pay the website money for her information so I do not know the details of the watch list, but an address with her hometown was attached to her name and phone number so I'm fairly confident it is really her. I don't even know how this could be related other than making the disappearance around the time she was supposed to go home so much weirder. The site does say this does not indicate criminal activity, could be related to someone she knows, or just reasonable suspicion without any wrongdoing. We became official on our last date. On this date, we talked about a number of things before starting a relationship, including her interest in joining the military, our relationships with our parents, communication, and exclusivity. When I inquired upon her interest in the military, and let her know the long distance required of the branch she was considering did not align with my lifestyle goals, I had been worried we might be at an impasse that would end our relationship. Instead, she backpedaled that she was not fully decided yet and open to being swayed. Her mom was already convincing her not to. Discussing our relationships with our parents is when she confirmed she intends to tell her parents in the future, but not for a few years, and said she'd be willing to talk more about family at a later date, not dinner, understandably, but therefore indicating future opportunity to discuss. On the topic of communication, she admitted it came less naturally to her, whereas I have no issue bringing attention to topics which need to be discussed, even when I don't want to. I said I'd be okay with it if she felt more comfortable discussing things on a call or over text, to which she said no, she wanted to handle serious conversations in person. Finally, on the topic of exclusivity, this was after she had confirmed she wanted to be in a relationship with me. She was the one who said exclusivity would be a non-negotiator for her, which I agreed to. It's what I wanted as well. On our last date, she looked me in the eye and said she felt so secure in our relationship, she wasn't used to it, but she was very happy about it. The last time I heard from her, she gave me the dates she would be available for a trip we were planning to take together. I had messaged to ask if she really wanted to go and didn't feel pressured, as she'd missed texting one day. We texted back and forth the next, then she missed two more, but she responded that she definitely wanted to go. Her boss had not given her the time off she requested for our trip, but she gave me the days that would work for her with the intention to trade some shifts. My response to her was that I would hold off further planning until she had secured the shifts, then we could discuss hotels and packing. And lastly, an inquiring message as to whether she had been given the time off to visit family, which she never responded to, so I had assumed the answer was yes, and that was the reason for her sudden silence. After a week of no responses to a few messages and calls just asking to know she was okay, I accepted that, if she had not responded yet, more attempts would not help. I'm sure she isn't getting my messages for one reason or another. My last message can be summarized as, if she wishes to ghost, I can respect that. I would however like to know she is okay, and would appreciate confirmation she wishes to terminate our relationship as we agreed to exclusivity. In case I do not hear from her, I gave her a date upon which I would be considering this a breakup. I have a brief message planned that I intend as my last correspondence upon that date, summarized as, I'm taking this as a breakup as there is nothing more I can do. I'm sad as this meant a lot to me, and if she ever sees the message, I would like to know that she is alright. I'm also leaving the door open as I do not wish to break up, I just don't know what more I can do. I don't want to bother her in case she did suddenly decide she wanted to go no contact. I truly just want to confirm that she is alright. It's hard to move on when I can't stop waiting, worrying I'll get a call from her in the hospital. The other night I had a nightmare about it. I know this will pass, but it's been awful trying to move on. I can typically see a ghosting coming and it doesn't faze me, I just move on and don't waste my time. I'm wishing she rejected me to my face so I could stop worrying. As of Monday, I'll be taking it as a breakup, but it really doesn't feel like one, so I feel weird about it. I'm doing okay, by the way. I went on the trip by myself since I never heard from her. I got to see a bunch of cool stuff. I have a great support system which I've been utilizing. I'm keeping active and have a lot going well for me right now. I don't think there's any more I can do, just move on like I've begun to, I guess. Bye and see you again in the next videos and stories.